My name is Shelia Burrell. I'm the assistant sprints, hurdles, and jumps coach at Georgetown University. Former two-time Olympian in heptathlon, competing in the 2000 Olympic Games, 2004 Olympic Games, and winning 5 U.S. national championships. One thing about training is that the science always works. So you really want to understand that when you do the right stuff, you work the basic principles and you will get results. One thing that, as I go through the presentation and bring you from teaching the beginner, some of the beginning mistakes and errors that they make onto the collegiate level, you'll notice that nothing really changes in terms of what you're teaching. So what you want to make sure you're doing is you want to be able to convey the information to the athlete at all those different levels in a way that they can understand and apply what it is that you're trying to teach them. I want to make sure that I acknowledge a few people who have been instrumental in my development and growth as a coach, not only as an athlete but also as a coach. That would be Cliff Revelto at Kansas State University, who was my coach actually for 4 years, helping me qualify for 2 Olympic Games, placing 4th in Athens. Gary Winkler, who probably is one of the most sound and best sprints and hurdles coaches in the country. Bob Kersey, who was my collegiate coach, who was instrumental in early development of my athletic career, but also in helping me understand some other aspects of training and competition. Tudor Bompa wrote periodization theory and methodology of training, which I think planning is extremely important. That's something that I learned from one of my mentors, that if without a plan, you plan to fail. So Tudor Bompa is someone that if you're really a beginning coach, he's a really good person, a good guy to get to know or to read so that you understand the training process and the plan of periodization. Todd Henson, who's now a sports coach in Germany, taught me a lot along the way. Vince Anderson, Texas A&M right now, and Ralph Mann, who wrote the Mechanics of Sprinting and Hurdling, which a lot of the science that we have for the sport now comes from Ralph Mann. One thing you want to do when you sit down for the year, you sit down with your athletes, you want to have a plan. You want to know where you're starting and where you want to finish. You're at the beginning of the year, you have an athlete with certain, you evaluate their abilities, and then you evaluate where it is that you want to take them and where is it they want to go. A bad plan is better than no plan at all. At least you're going in a direction. It's better to go somewhere than to go nowhere at all. With no plan, you go nowhere. Sound training principles. This is something that's really key and crucial, I think. Sound training principles and good intuition make up for places of faulty planning. Now, where you have faulty planning, if you work basically on sound training principles and you have good intuition as a coach, you will actually get to where you're trying to go, even if you don't have a plan. But sound training principles always work. And know what works for you. As a coach, you're continually tweaking and developing your own system and your own coaching style, and you're experimenting to see what works this year, what works that year. You keep what works, you get rid of what doesn't. You may have an athlete that some things work for and other things don't. But you always want to tweak and develop and learn and ask questions. I'm a coach that will pick anybody's brain. On all levels. I'll ask questions and want to know how and why things work. I think it's important to know why things work, not just how things work. In saying that, those who know why will always beat those who know how. I'm a young coach and developing and hoping to become a better coach one day, but I know that as a coach, you want to know why you're doing something and not just how to do it. I firmly believe that even in coaching my athletes, that's something I say all the time, is that if you know why you're doing what you're doing, you will in the end be victorious over the people who just know how, because that allows you to be a better teacher. You can explain it. You have your own way of saying things. You have your own vocabulary for words and for training and for principles. And so you always want to know why you're doing what you're doing. In sprint training, your sprinting inventory is your acceleration. Acceleration usually goes from 0 to 30 meters. Your maximum velocity usually goes from 30 to 60 meters. That's your as you transition, and that's when you get into your top end speed. Max velocity means top end speed. Speed endurance is usually 60 meters to 150 meters. You want to make sure that you cover a conditioning aspect of the athlete's training. That be their aerobic capacity, their muscular development, their core, general strength stuff. You definitely in conditioning want to address the the role of specific muscles as they apply to sprinting and hurdling. You know, predominantly your glutes, your hamstrings, your gastrocs, your soleus, your adductors, everything in the hip region, your hip extensors, your hip flexors, are very important to develop in terms of conditioning for your sprinter hurdler. Strength. Strength is part of that sprint training inventory where you are trying to develop eccentric and concentric strength, as well as static strength, elastic and dynamic. Sprint mechanics. Front-sided mechanics are crucial in teaching. When you get your high school athlete or your club athlete or your entering freshman collegiate athlete, what you will see a lot are a lot of backside mechanics. And what we want are front-side mechanics. What backside mechanics look like. Some of you may have athletes or seen athletes when they run, they're back here when they're running. You see, as my foot leaves the ground, it comes up here and then it drops. It drops. That's considered backside mechanics. Now, track and field has a lot to do with force production and being able to apply a maximum amount of force to the ground so that you can displace your hips and you can move to the next step. I've heard John Smith describe it as jumping down the track. You want to see your athlete jump down the track, which is an expression a word that I picked up and used with my athletes. Frontside mechanics involve, and we'll have video of this, involve having your athlete, teaching your athlete how to bring their foot from the ground, heel comes up into their butt here. They step over the inside knee, and you see this angle here? You can call this a figure 4, you can call this a high knee, but from here, the foot then goes back down into the ground. What you will see in a lot of young developing athletes, sprinters in particular, is you will see them constantly kicking back, and that's called back kick. They have a lot of back kick. You may also see them sitting in their hips. You know, they have not only have back kick, but their butts are sticking out behind them here. When teaching frontside mechanics, you always want to emphasize being tall. Being tall is extremely important, and getting your foot down underneath you is also extremely important. So when teaching frontside mechanics, you're always emphasizing in all of your drills, be tall, be tall. I have a young athlete now that thinks tall is this. You know, you'll see, you know, I'm saying get tall, and they'll stick their chest up and they'll bring their shoulders back. That's not necessarily tall. Tall has everything to do with your hips. I can be tall here, I can be tall here. My hips are still up. You know, butt's not sticking out, and I'm not sitting here. So being tall is very important, which points to posture, and making sure that as their foot leaves the ground, the heel comes straight up to the butt, up and underneath the butt, and then back down to the ground. Okay? We'll talk a little bit more about that on the track when we do some drills. Flexibility and mobility is the next thing in our sprint training inventory. Hip mobility, dynamic flexibility. You need all of that. Just think of the motion of hurdling and the motion of sprinting. Being able to be mobile and have some flexibility in the hip area, hamstrings and quads are very important. And then there's a psychological aspect. So a basic sprint training inventory has acceleration, has an acceleration component, max velocity, speed endurance, conditioning, strength, sprint mechanics, flexibility, mobility, and there's a psychological aspect that the coach actually helps to develop. Many times we've heard that character is, athletes learn character through athletics, or, you know, it helps develop character. That's what they say. They say that sports helps build character. I happen to disagree with that. I think that sports athletics reveals what's in you. So what's in you comes out of you when you're in stressful situations, or you're in positive situations. What is in you comes out of you. I do believe, though, that coaches help develop and build character in athletes. So in terms of the psychological aspect, you as a coach have a lot to do with how that athlete develops, and how they understand and process the information that you're giving them, and even the anxiety. And when there's a good performance or a bad performance, you actually influence how they respond and can train them to respond to things as you see appropriate. Basically, there are two types of sprinters. There is your speed type, and then there's your strength type. Your speed types are usually your 200 meter sprinters, and your strength types are usually your 2, 4. And I'm going to classify the 800 meters as a sprint as well, because there's definitely an anaerobic sprint component to it, although it's not an all-out sprint. Now, speed development, when we talk about sprinting, I'm going to try to make this as basic as possible. Speed development speed period has two components and two components only. And if you can manipulate one or two of those components, you've made an improvement, one more significant than the other. And that has to do with stride length and stride frequency. As you can see from the slide, to improve speed, you can improve one or both of these components, and you get faster. I mean, that's the basic. If you increase somebody's stride length, you know they cover more distance. If you increase their frequency, they're getting on the ground a lot quicker. What you want to do with your athletes is you want to be able to drill them, coach them, and teach them to find the optimal stride length and stride frequency for their bodies. There are some anthropometric implications, meaning how tall the athlete is, you know, how long their levers are. That will let you know whether or not, you know, whether improving their stride length, you're going to get the maximum, most bang for your buck, or improving their stride frequency. But it is possible to improve one, as you see on the slide. It's very possible to improve one component at the expense of the other and still see a significant improvement. But all efforts to improve stride length or stride frequency must be done within proper mechanics. In hurdling, I talked a lot about rhythm. It's very, very much the same when you're talking about sprinting. You look at the training inventory that I referenced earlier in sprint mechanics and conditioning, strength, flexibility, you know, those types of things. It's very, very crucial that all those things are developed within sound technique and sound mechanics. Once your athlete begins to not be able to do a drill or a run within sound mechanics, you want to back them off. You know, back off and go back, okay? When developing speed, however, you want to make sure that, you know, at no point as a coach do you want to get too far away from what it is you really want to do, and that's to run fast. So everything you do is, you know, as I say in this slide, is it stays within the confines of the pursuit of happiness, which is speed. We just want to run fast. You know, running fast is what you want to do. So I don't believe in my training philosophy that you run slow to run fast. I know that there's some coaching and philosophies that are contrary. However, I found that for me in my training program, in my system, that if you're going to run fast, you run fast. I don't necessarily like running slow to get faster. If we're going to get strong, I'm going to get strong doing the right types of things or the right dosages in terms of training energy systems in weight room, but I'm going to stay more toward the speed end of things. Acceleration in sprinting. Acceleration. Vince Anderson, who was formerly at Tennessee, is now at Texas A&M. I tend to agree with him that, you know, acceleration, it's important to teach all of your athletes the 100-meter acceleration pattern. Whether you are a long jumper, whether you are a hurdler, whether you're a 200-meter runner, a 400-meter, whether you are a 800-meter runner or even a 1,500-meter runner, whatever it is, the 100-meter acceleration pattern is easy to teach. And every event that I just mentioned, getting out of the back in the high jump or getting out of the back in the long jump, requires the same mechanics in acceleration. As you can see on the slide, I made some anecdotal comments that Toby Stevenson, who happened to be training at the Olympic Training Center while I was there, still competing, training with Todd Henson, medaled at the 2004 Olympic Games, and I can tell you from talking to his coach and even talking to him, there was definitely some technical improvements that he made, but one of the biggest improvements that Toby made that year was that he got faster. He got faster on the runway. So even if you're talking about pole vault, that acceleration, learning to accelerate and maintain speed is very crucial in your ballistic events. Okay. When talking about acceleration in training with your athletes, acceleration and power development go together in most cases. When you're talking about acceleration, think about it this way. Think about pushing. Think about pushing or running up a hill. Think about pushing a car. Think about pulling a sled or a tire. That requires you to be powerful in order to do those things. And the acceleration portion of your 100 meters or your 200 meters, of your 400 meters, is more powerful than it is quick. Okay? You will find a lot of high school kids, when you're teaching acceleration, they'll want to, from the very beginning, they feel that if their feet are going fast, they're turning over, they're running faster. That's not true in acceleration. Acceleration is not quick. It's powerful. And powerful means that it is methodical for one, but it is boom, 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 boom. You see how long that sounds? You can hear the rhythm. You can hear the rhythm of an acceleration pattern, which is You'll have high school kids that'll come out and they want to go from the very beginning, and you'll tell them to push, 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 which is a cue that I use. The cue I use is push, 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 or bump, bump, bump. I use a rhythm, bump, 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 and I'll start clapping or saying the rhythm of their acceleration is key. And what they'll say is, but that feels slower. It feels slower to do that. But really what you want to do is you're trying to cover more ground in each step as quickly as you can. So stride length and stride frequency, again, plays into acceleration. In the beginning of the, at the start, you want to have a little bit longer stride length at the expense of frequency, because you want to cover more ground in each stride at the proper angles, which we'll discuss on the track, before you transition up into your max velocity mechanics. The slide reads, to accelerate optimally, the athlete must learn how to powerfully extend completely from the hips through the shoulders. In acceleration, out of the blocks, you want to completely extend the shoulder, the hip, and the ankle here. There's a straight line through, even through the head. You know, you want to fully extend. What you'll see, if you, as you look at this slide, that your younger athletes maybe aren't strong enough to do this yet. So you'll see them not quite push off the block. This knee will be bent some. And so they're not getting a full extension through the hip. But as you get to your collegiate athletes and your more elite athletes, full extension through the hips and the shoulders is really effective for block clearance and just setting up your acceleration pattern, period. You know, there is some talk of this, but if you make your athletes stronger, you'll improve their ability to accelerate. Squatting, like the general conditioning stuff, but squatting, your power cleans, your lunges, a lot of single leg exercises in the weight room. If you can get them stronger, their acceleration will improve, both specific strength and overall strength. You know, specificity is something that you also want to take into consideration when training your athletes. The more specific you can be, you know, let me say it this way. In training your sprinter, you want to work from general to specific. But in my opinion, there's always a specific component in there. So from beginning of the season until the end of the season, we're always constantly working acceleration. From the beginning of the year, we're working acceleration. To the end of the year, we're still running acceleration ladders. We're still doing acceleration drills. You know, we may do a lot more hills in the fall, but we're always working acceleration and speed and sprint mechanics. And we're going to spend a little bit of time just breaking down the different components of being a good sprinter, even a beginning sprinter, so that younger coaches can kind of figure out what to emphasize in training and how to piece things together. Acceleration has a lot to do with posture and rhythm. Again, there's that word rhythm. Acceleration, bump, 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 bump. The idea of when you're pushing a car, first you have long pushes. As the car gets rolling, your feet start turning over, and you don't have to push as hard for your car to get rolling. That's acceleration into max speed. Okay? Or you think about rolling you see on cartoons, you're getting a snowball. When you're first pushing that ball, you're gathering the snow and it's taking a little bit longer. You're spending a lot more time pushing on the ground, And as the ball gets going, all you have to do is tap it. You're tapping it. Now, the metaphor or analogy that I use with my athletes is that of a skateboard. I actually keep a skateboard in our equipment box and ride it around the track, because on a skateboard, when you're first starting out on a skateboard, you kind of go like this. You push, you push, you push, you push. Now, as you get going, you don't have to push nearly as hard. All you have to do is tap the ground, tap the ground, tap the ground, coast, and tap the ground. Okay? I can tell some of my friends are going to make fun of me when I just said that, so this is skateboarding. The acceleration part of it is the push, 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 and then tap, tap, tap. Another analogy that you could use with your athletes is that of a basketball. Another coaching friend of mine uses this one. When you first get a basketball and you start the ball, initially you have to see the contact. Your contact with the ball is a lot longer. And as the ball gets going, to keep it going, all you have to do is tap it. Now again, there's a rhythm component to that. Bump, 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 bump. So there's definitely, in acceleration and max velocity, I want to enforce a rhythm. Now, as you're teaching these things, it's always within good sound technique and sound mechanics, so posture becomes extremely important when you drill and as you're having your athletes run through acceleration ladders or doing hills or doing sled or whatever it is that you would have them use. Even as your athletes get stronger and more powerful, their rhythm and body position during acceleration phase must never change. And this is something that I do with my athletes quite often, especially the young ones that come in. I'll say to you that if I'm standing straight up and down like this, whether I'm standing straight up and down here or I'm standing flat on the ground, I'm in the same position. So sound posture is I'm standing straight up and down here. If I'm laying flat on the ground, I'm in the same position I am now. If I'm pushing into this desk right here, I'm still in the same position. So in acceleration, that position there is the same as this position here. It's at a different angle though. Okay? So as you get stronger and more powerful, your rhythm and your body position does not change. Okay? So if you go from not being able to push quite as hard, you're not as powerful, to becoming more powerful, you're still in the same body position. So that means you're constantly trying to teach the right stuff from the beginning. Teach posture from the very beginning. This is an example that I had gotten from another coach. You can look at Walter Dix, who's a very extremely explosive and strong guy. And you can take a high school kid and look at their acceleration. Now, a high school kid with very good acceleration can have the exact same rhythm, exact same posture as Walter Dix, but I guarantee you that Walter is going to run much faster and cover much faster than he is and get out, a lot better. Why? Because he's stronger and he covers more ground. Okay? Because he's stronger and more powerful, he covers more ground in those initial steps from 0 to 5 steps than the high school kid. But the rhythm is exactly the same. So they could have the exact same rhythm, but because one athlete is stronger than the other, they will have a better acceleration because they cover more distance and therefore will run faster. The only acceleration chart that allows you to train at lower intensities and models progressive acceleration rhythm is one by Vince Anderson. That's a chart for progressive acceleration. And that chart goes from a 13-second 100-meter rhythm to a 10.10-second 100-meter rhythm. It also sets up long jump rhythms, pole vault rhythms, and hurdle rhythms. Because the acceleration being a rhythm, you want to be able to progress that as the level and ability of the athlete progresses. And it gives you also some control of intensities in training. Those charts actually are available at the email address that's referenced at the front of the video. Okay, what to look for? What you want to look for in acceleration is full extension of the knee, hip, and shoulders we talked about before. You want to look for a front shin angle. Look for that front shin angle as it relates to the body angle. So you want to see a straight line from the support leg to the head. And we saw this earlier. You see the straight line from here to here. But you also want to see this front shin angle be in this shin angle be almost at a 45-degree angle. So as you're watching your athletes with full extension, you should see angles similar to that. And again, I'm not giving very specifics on this information because I want to make it as accessible and useful as possible. The recovering shin angle should be less than parallel to the ground for the first 3 steps. Here's another way to look at this at acceleration. You see where the hip, the knee, the ankle, where the arrows are pointed are all extended. Your back is straight. Dorsiflex, your foot is dorsiflex, which means your toe is toward your head, your ankle is cocked. And your thigh, the top of your thigh, is parallel to the ground. And that's your acceleration. That's your position out of the blocks, and that's your position at contact with the ground. This next slide shows different ways on how to develop strength and power for acceleration. As you read through this slide, it talks about strength and saying there's no conflict between the possession of maximal strength and the application of dynamic strength. The higher level of max strength allows an athlete to readily obtain dynamic strength. Okay? Now, dynamic strength meaning the application, being able to apply the strength you have in a very dynamic or specific movement to what you're trying to do, which is accelerate or to sprint. Some of the things you can do to develop strength and power for acceleration are short hills. Emphasizing within sound technique, posture, whatnot, emphasizing those same mechanics, short hills from 10 to 40 meters. Your acceleration phase for, athletes, collegiate athletes ranges about 30 meters, 10 to 40 meters max. Elite athletes, their acceleration phase could go for 60. Sled pulls, weight training to develop maximal strength in the prime movers. What are your prime movers? Your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads, and your calves. Those are, in sprinting, those are prime movers. But predominantly it'll be your glutes, your hamstrings, and your quads. Standing long jumps are good for acceleration because you're thinking about that push. And a standing long jump, it relates to acceleration because if you think about coming out of the blocks, it's almost like jumping, it's squatting. This motion right here is the same as this motion here out of the blocks. So when you do a standing long jump, which we'll demonstrate later, that full extension of the hips, when we do standing long jumps, I'm always emphasizing full extension of the hips. Relates to acceleration. Speed squats and some depth jumps. Okay, now we move into your max speed component of sprinting. Now this is mainly a lot of drill work in terms of training, energy systems and whatnot. We'll cover some of that, but not a lot of it. This is mainly about the mechanics of sprinting. Max speed mechanics, front side mechanics, max speed mechanics, max velocity mechanics, whatever term you use, front side mechanics. Okay, toe up, heel up, thigh up, hips tall, step over the opposite knee. We'll go through a series of drills that that will help to teach your athletes to, one, get their heel up, their thigh up, and force them to get their hips tall so they'll see what that feels like. But what that is toe up, heel up, thigh up, parallel to the ground, hips tall, and stepping over the inside knee. So at max velocity, I'm coming here, stepping over the inside knee, stepping over the inside knee. What you will see in some athletes who may not be strong enough or may not have the flexibility or mobility of the hips is you will see them come from here and their leg will swing. They'll go from here and swing, swing. What you want to be able to get them to do is step over, step over, step over, okay? And there's a drill that we'll see on the track that'll help us to see how to try to train that and develop that. Okay, we're on the track and we're going to go over some of the drills sprint drills that we can do to help reinforce front side mechanics. Front side mechanics are very crucial and important when you're talking about max velocity or max speed. Now I'm having Burrell lay flat on his back because when you're teaching front side mechanics and you want to give the athlete the idea that their foot never should break the plane, should not kick behind them, they shouldn't have any back kick, what you can do is have them lay flat on the ground. And when they lay flat on the ground, you notice that he cannot, because the ground is there, his foot can't go back. So what I'll say is, okay, you're laying flat. I want you to drag your heel up toward your butt. So he's going to pull his heel up to his butt. Okay, laying flat on the ground, that's the position you want to be when you're at max speed, when you're at max velocity. His heel is up to his butt, and here's his knee. He would be able to step straight over his knee. Push it back down. Do the other leg. So now, because the ground is there, he cannot possibly push back. So then, Burrell, stand up. Now he's going to do the same thing. Bring your heel up and straight back down. Bring your heel up. So you want to see them do the same thing as if there was a wall. If the ground was still here, bring your heel up. He'd bring his heel straight up and straight back down. Other side, heel up and back down. So now you've got him with the sensibility that everything is straight up and straight down. Straight up, straight down, straight up, and straight down. So now we're going to do the heel raise drill. This is stepping over the knee, heel straight up, straight down, pushing straight down to the ground. Now every action has an equal and opposing reaction. So when he pushes down, the force is going to come straight up from the ground through his body. So he should be hitting flat-footed in this drill only and not on the balls of his feet. Ready? Go. Pop, 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 tall. Get tall. Pop, 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 flat, 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 and relax. Okay. Again, Burrell came into the program as he's a freshman now, and when he came in, he had a lot of backside mechanics. So what you see now is not what he was doing, 7-8 months ago. Now there's a device that I use called the activator belt. Now there's only one company that sells the activator belt here in the U.S., and that's SpeedQuest. If you would like more information about it, feel free to email me or contact me at the email address listed at the front of the video, and I'll get you in contact with them. Now the activator belt, as you see Burrell, this is one of my sprinters here at Georgetown, he's sitting down right now. Now part of the reason he's sitting down is because when he stands up, this is a belt connected to 4 bungees or 5-6 bungees. And the tension on this belt is pulling his foot upward. Lift your leg up. So as he lifts his foot up, the tension in the bungees and the cords release. So that means that what he's doing is he's actively pushing his foot down into the ground. So what this teaches, it teaches your athletes to basically apply force to the ground, and then what's going to happen is that not of his own consequence, his foot has to come straight back up to his butt underneath his heel. So I'm going to sit down for a second. So what we talked about is that you want to maximize front side mechanics and minimize backside mechanics. Now backside mechanics, for those of you who are coaching high school athletes, sprinters, and beginning sprinters, you will see them do this a lot. We talked about this earlier, where you'll see lots of backflip here. You'll see their foot leave the ground and come back to their butt. In essence, doing a butt kick. Now, a lot of high schools and beginning coaches have this drill. Butt kick has been around for years. It's been around forever. But a butt kick is not specific to sprinting. When we sprint, we never kick our butts in this fashion. At least we shouldn't. So you will see a lot of your young sprinters who are just coming out of high school into college even, who run like that, kicking their butt. What we want to try to do, we talked about earlier, is maximize the frontside mechanics and force production into the ground. It's all about force production into the ground. So Bjorn's going to stand up here. This first drill that we're going to do is called heel raise. Now, a key to frontside mechanics is bringing your heel straight down from the ground up into your glute and stepping over that inside knee. So when he does this drill, we'll do it with the belt and I'll see what it looks like without the belt. The key is not to cycle. You don't want to cycle in a running motion. We're trying to program into his body the motion of straight up, straight down, straight up, straight down. So I'm going to ask him to hit flat-footed. We're not going to hit the ball of our foot because, as Newton's law says, that every action has an equal and opposing reaction. So when Bjorn, lift your foot up and he pushes his foot straight down to the ground, if he forcefully pushes that down, you get a rebound, okay? Now, if we don't get up very high, if we get up this high, we don't get very much force. So you get more force into the ground with your knee being parallel to the ground. So heel raise, we're going to walk through it first. Heel raise, hips are tall, his heel comes high and tight into his butt here, and he pushes it straight down to the ground. And then go the other leg, straight down to the ground. Other leg. Bjorn's a freshman on our team. Came in with lots of backside mechanics when he first got to Georgetown. Keep your heel tighter and tighter. So you can do this drill walking, but you can also do it with the activator belt, because what's going to happen is as he's coming up, his foot comes up, he actually has to push straight back down because there's resistance. Okay, let's stop there. Now, that's a walking A drill, essentially. Now we're going to take that into what's called a heel raise. And the heel raise is where we're lifting our foot, bring our heel up to our butt. Now notice, one of the cues that I use with this drill is that I should never see the back of your shoe. So Bjorn, face that way. Bring your heel up. Now you see this portion of his shoe. When they do this drill, I would watch it from behind because I should never see this. If I see the back of his shoe, that's not frontside mechanics. Turn this way. As you can see, the angle totally changes. So now we're here and we're pushing straight down in the ground. We're probably going to hit our toe first, but there's not nearly as much force pushed into the ground. Whereas if you come from here to here, now you see the angle and you see how his glute here is exposed, and he can apply a lot more force into the ground, therefore pushing him down the track. So we're going to do a heel raise, and the best way to do this is and especially with beginners, is that you don't want them to go too fast. The emphasis is not moving fast that way. It's what? Stride length and stride frequency. So we want to go up and down. We get as many contacts into the ground as we can moving down the track for a total of 15 to maximum 20, 25 meters. 20 meters is probably enough on this drill because it's pretty exhausting. Okay, ready? Heel raise. Hit. Heel tuck. So what I'll do is I'll stand right in front of him. And when I have a group of kids, I'll say, okay, if you pass me, we start all over again. But elbows back, hips tall, no cycle, push straight down on the ground. He should not run into me. Hit flat, 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 and relax. Okay, that's heel raise. So the idea is hips are tall. We talked about this earlier, that posture is everything. One of the cues that I use also is if you take a nail, this is kind of how I explain things very simply to the athlete. If you take a nail, this body's a nail, and you're going to hit it on the top, hit the nail with a hammer on top of the head, and it goes directly into a piece of wood, it's going to go straight down to the wood if the nail is straight. Okay? If that nail is bent, if there's a bend in it, and you hit it on top of the head, if you hit the hammer on top of the head, what do you think happens to all the force that you just applied to the nail? The nail's going to bend. and you're going to lose it, right? It's not going to go straight down into the piece of wood. It's going to it's going to bend the nail, and you're going to lose all that power. So what I'll tell the athlete is, your hips, the ground is like the hammer, and you are like the nail. And so standing from the side, if he's doing this drill and his butt, chest up, his butt sticking out behind him, and that's the nail, if he's hitting his foot straight down, pick your foot up, which you can't really get his knee up, push it down, he's going to lose all that force and power right out of his butt. You see? So it's just going to go all out. But if he's tall, hips tall, straight down, straight up, it goes straight through the body. We talked about in terms of posture and acceleration, how you want to have that line that goes from the heel, from your hip, from your ankle, through your hips, through your shoulders. We keep that position and that posture all the time. So this, butt out, is out of position. You lose everything right here, okay? Now, if his hips are in front of him and he's leaning back, he's trying to do it like this, lift your knee up, straight down, you lose everything here. The angles need to be always in line, so your posture is always tall. Okay, we're gonna do that drill again, not quite so fast, and I want you to make sure your heel comes into your butt and straight back down, hit flat. Ready? Hit. Keep it tight, 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 and relax. Okay, so that's a heel raise. Now we do that drill with and without the belt. In the beginning of the year, we do it a lot without the belt to teach the basics of it, and then we do it with the belt. The next drill that we do in emphasizing frontside mechanics, so one of the things that you want to emphasize, one, is knee lift, or I say, instead of saying knee lift, I don't like using knee ups, I like to get the thigh parallel to the ground. So the thigh is parallel to the ground here. It's not parallel, that allows my heel to be exposed. I can have my foot down, my heel's exposed. If it's parallel, that heel's right underneath my butt, okay? The next drill we do is a quick leg drill, okay? And quick leg is once again, rhythm. Rhythm, 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 rhythm. And quick leg is going to teach him how to, one, step over the knee, and without casting. You'll hear a lot of coaches in the past who talked about casting. High school athletes do that B-skip thing when they run. You want to B-skip, they're thinking about B-skipping. It's not about the kick out, it's about the force being applied back to the ground. Always remember, you can't go anywhere unless you're on the ground. You can't push in the air. There's nothing to push against. So when you're doing when we do a quick leg drill, we're trying to affect the velocity or the speed of the recovery. How fast can we recover? You know, this is called a recovery cycle. How fast can we recover? So we're working on being tall and recovering. And in doing that, the cue is the foot always comes back underneath you. So when we do this, we're not trying to stop out here. All we're thinking about is bringing our heel up, letting our hamstring be exposed here, and getting our foot back underneath our center of mass. So B, let's do a quick leg. Let's do one leg. You can do this left leg only, right leg only. There's different combinations you can do with it. You can do left, left, right, right. You can do continuous lefts or continuous rights, or you can do continuous left, right, left, right, left, right. Let's do a continuous outside leg. Okay, and bring it back from there. Can you come back from there? Boom. Look down here. Look down here. Good. So what you see is now he should always remain tall, and I was cueing him to look down toward me because we want to be in slow motion. You're right here. You're tall, foot comes up, step over the knee, and pull the foot right back underneath you. So a left, left, right, right, as you saw BRM do. A left, left, right, right, where you're really emphasizing getting back down off the ground, looks like this. Left, left, right, right. Left, left, right, right. Okay? So BRM, do that for me. Left, left, right, right. Left, left, right, right. Now, what you'll notice with your younger, as you're teaching this, we're talking about mechanics. As you're teaching this, you'll be able to notice where there's some weaknesses are as a coach, where you know you need to strengthen. Because if your athlete is bringing his chest to his knees and not his knees to his chest, his core needs work. Okay? So I've been doing this a long time. When I do this, I'll come here. See how everything comes up when I come up and I step over. BRM has a little bit of a, when he does the drill. Okay? And that's just a learning, that's a strengthening thing, but it's also just an application of him becoming more aware of what position and posture he's in. When we come here, we don't necessarily have to bring our chest down to our knees. Everything is always from the ground. Knees up to the chest, not chest down to the knees. Okay. Now, keep in mind that these drills are specific to sprinting. At no point will we do a butt kick, because a butt kick is not specific to sprinting. I used the comment earlier that John Smith describes this as jumping down the track. Well, in order to jump down the track, you got to have this knee up, apply force to the ground underneath your center of mass so you can move over it. Okay, we're trying to move over each step. Another aspect of sprint drills, we call it ankling. Some people call it ankle pops. A lot of these drills, I'll give credit, come from Lawrence Seagrave and Speed Dynamics a long time ago. Lots of coaches have taken them on and given them different names and applied them in different ways specifically to them. Ankling is all about ground contact. So when my foot steps up and over, all I'm trying to do is maximize that negative foot speed back down to the ground. That's called negative foot speed. From here, boom, pulling it here. So BRM's going to do a quick ankling quickly, where all he's trying to do is step over the ankle. Step over the ankle, step over the ankle, step over the ankle. We're going to start with a walk. The progression is you start with a walk. So we're going to stand here, step over the ankle, and grab. Grab, toe stays up. Dorsiflexion is key. Even in this drill, you want to make sure the hips are tall and everything is pushing straight down underneath you. So as he's doing this drill, he's still trying to pull his foot underneath him and keep his hips tall. Pull, 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 pull. There you go. Pull, pull, pull. Okay, stop there. Now we're going to progress that into, we're going to bring more speed into that. We're going to start moving with that. Okay, ankling. Pop, 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 pop. Hips tall. Good. So as you see, it's the same drill, except now we're in this position here. Pop, 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 pop. And the key is to always stay what? Keep your hips tall. And everything is stepping over the knee and right underneath you. Another drill that we use, you have your basic A-skip. We do a basic A-skip. Here's your A-skip drill. Now you notice that A-skip drill, how his angle's pretty wide, right? That's your basic A-skip drill. Do your basic B-skip drill. Okay, that's your basic B-skip drill. Now the key, remember that the B-skip drill is not about kicking out, but pulling back down to the ground. It's always about velocity or force coming back, pulling your foot back down to the ground. We do a drill that, again, keeping in tune with posture, where your shoulders, always want to keep your shoulders over your hips. We talked about earlier whether I'm laying flat on the ground or whether I'm pushing into a wall or I'm standing straight down, I'm always going to be tall here. So if B was walking into me, push. He's tall. Come on. Just fall forward. He's tall. Go ahead and fall. At your ankles. Let your ankles go. Just like we're pushing into a wall. Yeah. He's tall. I got you. He's tall. Okay? You see that position there. But what you want to do is make sure that his shoulders stay over his hips the whole time. So we're going to do an A-skip drill with our hands out in front of us, which is going to force him to stabilize in his core, and he's going to keep his heel tight to his butt, just like we did the heel raise drill, but keep his shoulders over his hips the whole time. Again, I got this drill from another great coach out in California. He used to be at UCLA. He's here. So be honest, you do that drill for me, pizza box. Right. And I have him do that little half skip for a reason. So we're here, boom, boom. And as you're doing it, the whole point is to try to stay there and do it again. Is to step over the knee as you do it. Step over the knee. Step over the knee. Keep the heel tight. Keep the heel tight. The heel tight. Good. Now, the way you force this drill is the more stability and core strength you get, you'll be back here. And as you get better at it, you'll start seeing your athletes actually feel like, give me your hands, they're doing that drill, go, do the drill. And I'm trying to pull him down the track. So basically he's doing the drill like this, here, here, here. Because where am I sprinting at? Here, here, here. Hips in front of my shoulders. Shoulders in front of my hips. This is just a marching drill. You can use these 12-inch banana cones or banana hurdles or the smaller 6-inch ones. But in teaching max velocity, max speed mechanics, another drill that you can do, you can start off with a marching drill, is teaching your athletes that everything is about going back down to the track. So when they bring their foot up, they're pushing straight back down, pushing straight back down, pushing straight back down. But what you'll notice, what I want BRM to do, is as he pushes on the support leg, to push his foot back down. So you see how I'm displacing, or I'm covering distance, and I have to put my foot back down. Okay, shoulders are in front of my hips, and I'm putting my foot back down. Now you can set up these cones anywhere from 1.5 to 2 meters. All right, just depends on the level of your athlete. You might want to progress them as they go. We're going to keep these pretty short, and we're going to kind of limit it. So as you step through just a marching drill through the hurdle, you can handle the ball of your foot. As you step through, just make sure you go ahead and let your hips move forward. Stay tall. But the key is pushing straight back down to the track. Now you see the distance, how he had to reach out a little bit there. Go ahead and do it again and push a little bit more so you don't have to reach for the next hurdle. Boom, push straight down, push straight down, push straight down, straight down. Now this is a really good example of when you're teaching this. Now the first thing he did, like I said, he's a freshman just learning how to do this. What did I see from behind him is I saw lots of his heel. So he stepped over and his foot came from the ground back here. Always take your foot from the ground straight up underneath your butt. So BRM, do it again. Well, let me see the back of your shoe. Bring it up, bring it up. Bring it up. There. There. Okay. Now with the higher hurdles, it's a little bit harder because they'll want to clear the hurdle, make sure they clear the hurdle, so they'll bring their foot up higher. But the idea is to step, 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 step. I just knocked that one down. These ones are higher, so you kind of got to be careful of that. So those are some pretty basic sprint drills in developing frontside mechanics for max velocity or max speed. Here's a key training principle is to use drills and exercise that utilize the same muscles and forces used in the actual event. Drills, you don't want to do drills just for the sake of doing drills. You may be at a meet and you see some other school doing a cool drill that looks pretty neat, pretty cool to you, and you don't really know why they're doing or what they're doing it for, but if you understand the application of it, great. But doing drills for the sake of doing drills really is counterproductive, because you want to do things that apply specifically to the movements that you want to do. If you're sprinting, you want to drill the muscles and the movements that you use in sprinting. If you're a long jumper, you want to drill the muscles and the movements that you use in jumping. That's just a basic training principle. Now here are some basic tasks to help develop maximum speed. We had some tasks to develop acceleration, now here's some tasks to develop maximum speed. One of them being flying 30s. With a flying 30, it's based on the ability of the athlete to achieve max speed between 15 to 35 meters, depending on what level of the athlete you have and their ability, of course. When we're doing flying 30s, you would set up from the start line, you'd set the cone about 30 meters away from the start. And you want to time how fast they run that zone, that 30-meter zone. So it's called a 30-meter fly. So the buildup is their acceleration, and you time their max velocity. Now, when you have younger athletes, that 30 meters may not be maybe too far from them. They may actually have to come up into their max speed mechanics before they get to 30 meters. So you allow them to start closer. Or you give them a 25 meter or a 20 meter. Or in some cases, you know, your younger, maybe not as strong athletes, 15-meter acceleration, and then time, they're flying 30. Max velocity is about 30, it's like you can only hold max velocity for 1 to 2 seconds. So that you're going to time that max velocity in that 30-meter fly. You teach the athlete to sprint relaxed and to focus on feeling what their body is doing. So as you run flying 30s, yeah, it's about running fast, but you're also teaching them to run fast, relaxed. It's kind of an oxymoron when you say, okay, I want you to try, but to relax. You want to work hard, but relax, but make it easy. So those two things don't go together, but it's teaching the athlete in training how to run higher velocities as relaxed and as good a posture as possible. Flying 60s. There's a 6-second rule. After 6 seconds, it's impossible to run any faster in 100 meters. After 6 seconds, you can't run any faster. Flying 60s is a way to develop maximum speed as well. Same concept. You give them a 30-meter, up to a 30-meter acceleration zone and 60-meter fly zone. Time the 6-meter fly. Downhill running on a 2 to 5% grade. Downhill running will affect what? That'll affect their frequency. Okay, being able to hold their posture, their mechanics, running downhill, which forces them to run at higher velocities than they can do on their own. They can run on their own. So the body then is getting a different, to stay within what we're talking about, a different rhythm. They're getting faster rhythms, sprint rhythms, when they run downhill, or when you are doing overspeed training. Overspeed training, you're pulling your athlete, whether with a bungee or whatever device that you have, that is putting in faster velocities into their body. So their body now knows or feels what it's like to run that fast. So as they run, you can break that speed barrier where you put their bodies in that at that velocity that they've never been at before. Okay. Over shorter than, longer than drill. This is a drill I got from Tony Wells, which we'll talk about on the track. That's in that. And that's a drill. The shorter than drill is working on frequency. The longer than drill is working on stride length, okay, in the max speed. Flying 30s with a weight vest. There's lots of contrast work. When I say contrast, I mean weighted, unweighted. Flying 30s with a weight vest, take the weight vest off, run them again. You can kind of see how that would work. Sprint float sprints or float sprint floats. This is something that we do at the end of a workout. We do this as part of our work, ins and outs. Some coaches call them ins and outs with a breathing component. But sprint float sprint is when the athlete is forced to learn to sprint relaxed, but they're also running in max velocity mechanics. So they'll sprint and then they'll float, which means that they don't slow down. They don't stop. They maintain their mechanics and float through a zone, 40 meters, 30 meters, whichever you prefer, and they'll pick it up again and sprint the last zone. I use sprint, float, sprint as part of our warm down. I don't ask them to run it fast, but I ask them just to execute. So after we finished all of our workouts and we've done whatever core circuit, or before we do our core circuit as a cool down, we'll do a sprint, float, sprint, or a float, sprint, float for 120 meters. So that's our cool down, just to reinforce mechanics. Depends on what we're doing that day. Power technique drills. This is something that I found that has made a huge, tremendous difference in teaching front side mechanics and teaching max velocity mechanics to my athletes with the use of an activator belt. We'll actually show you some of that on the track today. But it's teaching technique, power technique, which means there's some resistance drills, doing all of our sprint drills with an activator belt, which forces the athlete to apply force to the ground. And then you have your basic sprint drills, which we've discussed already on the track. What we'll do now is I'll explain to you again that sprinting is two things. It's stride length and it's stride frequency. How do you achieve stride length? By pushing on the ground. You don't want to pull yourself down the track. Pulling yourself down the track is skipping almost down the track. Pulling yourself down the track is when you sprint and you pull. You pull. You'll see the athlete cast out their lower leg. I have a 10-4 sprinter that does exactly that, but he has hamstring issues. That tension here is going to put lots of pressure on your hamstring here. As soon as he learns to pull his foot back underneath him, it'll solve some of our hamstring problems. So sprinting is two things, stride length and stride frequency. You achieve, let's move to this lane here. You achieve stride length by pushing. So push me, push against me, walk with me like you're doing it. Push me. You're not going anywhere. So he's pushing against the track. So he should be displacing. So push longer. There. Push longer. Push longer. Push longer. Bring your heel straight to your butt. There. 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 Relax. So with your young hurdlers, you're trying to think, well, how do I get across to them? You know, you do wall drills. Wall drills are great, but you can also walk with them. And one of the things I'll say is, they'll start doing this drill. Go. And I'd be like, you're not moving me. You should be moving me. You should be covering some ground. He's just going straight up and straight down. If he's not, you know, this is a guy, he's much stronger than I am. He should be moving me down the track. Okay? And I'll show you what it looks like. So now he's going to resist me. So you can see the displacement or the movement of the hips. Let me go with you. So he's here. So I'm going to push. So he has to move. Like my foot doesn't come off the ground until he's actually covered some distance, okay? And stride frequency, so that's stride length, basics, very basic. How do you achieve stride length? You push on the track. Frequency has to do with how quickly you can get on and off the ground. So coaches, you'll do a high knee drill. High knee. Hips tall, hips tall, hips tall, hips tall, hips tall. Relax. Okay? How quick you can get up and off the ground in good posture. So your goal is to achieve optimal stride length and optimal stride frequency. So young hurdlers. Years ago when I was in college, I worked at the Riviera Country Club out in Brentwood, California, where Sugar Ray Leonard and OJ used to go play golf together. And I used to teach, women how to run. You know, that was my summer gig, was teaching people how to sprint. And one of the basic drills that I kept, and I learned, is teaching them how to basically push, and then step over. So those two drills I just did, for the younger coaches, high school coaches especially, beginning coaches, I would have them walk with me and push me. And then I'd have them get quicker. I'd have them start doing a high knee. So B, let's do that. High knee, and run with it, run with it, run with it. Okay, and the whole point of that is that, didn't cover much distance. The whole point is that so they get the feeling of push and lift, push and lift, push and lift, push and lift. Something that we do a lot, at least twice a week in the fall, is we're trying to develop that elastic strength and the stretch reflex in the calf muscle, is we do straight leg hurdle hops. I guess I've found or kind of figured that these probably are, I get a lot out of straight leg hurdle hops and single leg hurdle hops and straight leg bounds, more so than I do out of just doing all of my drills. It's a type of plyometric, but drills are a plyo. But I really like these because it begins to teach the athlete so they can feel themselves how much time they're spending on the ground and where their hips are when they come off the ground. So Bjorn's going to do a straight leg hurdle hop over us, and he's going to do a couple of single leg hurdle hops. Pop, 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 pop. As a coach, what I'm looking for is just to see how he's coming on and off the ground. Pop, 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 pop. A lot of the cues that I use and a lot of things that I say have to do with, again, some sort of musicality, some sort of rhythm, some sort of, what it sounds like. Let's do a single leg. Pop, pop. Now, this is where you'll be able to see. Do the other leg as well. As they begin to do the single legs, you'll see how much more time he's spending on the ground to do a single leg. And let's check the other leg, see how the other leg looks. Pop. The other leg looks a lot better. So as a coach, you're looking at these things and you say, okay, we'll do it again, we'll run through it a couple more times, but it gives you an idea of where the athlete's at and kind of some of the things that you can point to and work on. When teaching acceleration mechanics, you want to teach acceleration from a number of different ways. You don't necessarily want to do the same thing all the time. You want to teach how to accelerate from a standing position. You want to do it from a 3-point position, a 4-point position. Sometimes we'll do get up and goes where we're laying on our back, we're laying on our side. We'll do different games or drills where you're teaching them how to teaching acceleration from various different positions. So the athlete can then get a sense of, their push, what their push feels like, and it adds some variety into the training. Now, we do this in our warm-up. Now, understand that a lot of the warm-up, dynamic warm-ups, if you're not doing dynamic warm-ups, you need to be, or long continuous warm-ups, you need to be. For you younger coaches, or for your coaches that are on a high school level, even on a collegiate level, realize that your warm-up is part of your conditioning. You can get a lot of coaching and a lot of teaching done in the warm-up. So our warm-ups are fairly long, and they include all the things that prepare them for the workout. So a lot of drills are in their warm-up, a lot of muscle activation things are in their warm-up, lunges are in their warm-up, hops are in their warm-up. Those kinds of things are in their warm-up, and it's part of the conditioning. It's not just a warm-up from the coach's point of view. From the athlete's point of view, it's just a long warm-up and they're tired, but that's also part of the training, so it allows you to get a lot more work done in the training session, and all the work that you don't have time to do individually, you can do it in your warm-up or you can do it in your cool down. So for acceleration, one of the very basic things, which is included in one of our longer warm-ups, is just a falling start. So when you're doing a falling start, all he's going to do is he's going to pick up his foot at the very last second. So he's going to fall forward, and right when he has to stick his foot out is when he's going to pull his heel. You're going to drag, just kind of come here on acceleration. He's gonna drive his knee up and push it back down to the track. Okay? Good. With acceleration, the difference is the angles. We talked about the angle on the track where instead of being nice and tall as a max velocity, you're here. So when that knee drives out, you're not trying to bring your knee to your heel to your butt like this. It's more so like this. See where my heel's a little bit in front of me. Now the angle before needed to be closed. Now the angle's a little more open because we're in this position here and we're trying to apply force to the ground. BRM, let's do a falling start again. Let's just go 3 pushes. Push, 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 push. Good. Okay? So the cue is in that falling start, yeah, we're falling here, but think about it. Automatically, without even having to tell your athletes, that arm should be nice and long as well. So the push, push, push is cued either from the foot or you can cue it from your arm. So it can be push, push, push through the arm, or it can be push, push, push through the hip. Okay? Full hip extension. When doing acceleration also, you want to emphasize that it's counterintuitive in the sense that, especially in the 100 meters. In the 100 meters, you think you have to be fast the whole time. It's really counterintuitive because the acceleration portion is really slow initially for the first 30 meters than it is at 60 meters because your ground contacts are much longer, okay? So instead of thinking da-da-da-da-da-da, you gotta think bum, 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 and it gets gradually faster. Let's do a 3-point. No. We're gonna do a 3-point from just 2 pushes, 2 big pushes. Push, push with the arms. Push, push. Okay. We do a 3-point from that position. So now he's gonna start from a lunge position. Arms become very important here. Push, push for 3 steps. Falls forward. Push, 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 push. Now, crucial, if you were to slow this down, if I were to slow that down, I would see that he did not get full extension. Okay? But, again, that's something that you have to program and teach. So when he comes from this position here, what you want to do is the shin angle becomes important. So whereas B's foot was out here, I'm going to bring my foot in and actually force myself to fall over where my hips are over my shoulder and then fully extend out. okay? This is called bow, touch, and go. Pop. Very good. You see, this is good sometimes when the athletes don't do it perfectly, because not everybody's going to do it perfectly or correctly. But you could see from that position, when he bow, touched, and go, where were his hips? They were behind him. Again, he didn't fully extend, okay? So bow, touch, and go, when we're here, same thing. Hips, shoulders, over my hips. I'm going to reach in front of me and go. First step, fully extend. All right. Okay, now we get into those are some basic acceleration routine type drills that you can incorporate, or that we do. Now we're going to get into the acceleration ladder here. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Vince Anderson, who happens to be the assistant sprint coach at Texas A&M, who used to be at the University of Tennessee, had come up with a progressive acceleration chart for the hurdles, the 100 meters, and the long jump and pole vault. Now, all acceleration patterns, whether you're a pole vaulter, you're a jumper, you're a hurdler, 200-meter runner, 400-meter runner, is based off of the 100-meter acceleration pattern, okay? So what we have set up here is from the start, from the line out, is an acceleration pattern that's based off of a 10-9 100-meter rhythm. Now, it's rhythm, 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 rhythm. Everything's rhythm. So we have a 10-9 rhythm. And what we'll do is, as we progress through the year or through the season, we started this outdoor season this year, is that we'll progress from a 10-9. And once the athletes master or get really good at a 10-9 ladder, we'll move down to the 10-7 ladder. Once they master or do really well over a 10-7 ladder, we'll reduce it to a 10-5 ladder. So you're constantly running faster and faster rhythms within the correct posture and position, okay? Now, these charts also are available via Vince Anderson or myself at the email address listed at the front of the video. So this happens to be a 10-9 ladder. And what you're looking for, you know, Vince will always emphasize, we video quite a bit in practice. He'll always emphasize what you're looking for is you want their hips, you want to see their hips over the stick. Okay, whether you use tape or stick or whatnot, or tapes or sticks, their hips need to be over the tips. They're not trying to hit the mark. They're trying to make sure that that first step is here and their hips are right over the stick. And what they're trying to do also is as they drive, push over, their foot needs to do what? Push back to the stick behind it. It needs to be pushing behind them, constantly pushing behind, pushing behind, pushing behind. Now, Bjorn's already gone on a 10-5 ladder. Previously, we were at this on a 10-9, so he's going to have to slow down a little bit. And the difference is, they'll tell you, is that when you get to a 10-5 ladder for us, or even a faster ladder, that first step's a lot longer. You know, this first step on this ladder is 3 feet 5 inches. Okay, mind you, on a 10-5 ladder, it's 3 feet 7 inches. So that means that first step, what are they doing in acceleration? They're pushing a lot longer. So the stronger you are, the more distance you can cover. So the faster the ladder, you're covering more distance in each stride. So your stride length and your stride frequency are now increased. So we have 10 steps. This ladder goes all the way up to 20 steps, 22 steps. We're going to start off with a 10-step ladder. Push, 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 push. Now this acceleration ladder, you can do this with or without starting blocks. So we're doing it without starting blocks. We're just doing a falling start essentially, but you can set some blocks. You can put the blocks up and have the athlete actually run their acceleration ladder out of the blocks, which is obviously more specific to racing. Okay, so they'll be in the exact same angles. You can see what angles they're going to be in when they're coming out of the blocks and their starts. You can watch their hurdle clearance, their block clearance. When you do it out of blocks. So either or, when you're using the same ladder for the long jump, when you're using a progressive chart for your long jump, you can start upright. The jumper can even rock back like they would in a long jump and then start their first step. That's fine when you're using a long jump progression. But for the sprint progression, you can use it with or without the starting blocks. But the key is, you want to be, as a coach, you got to develop an eye to see. The better your eye, the better. To see where they are over each stick, and basically to listen for the rhythm. So you don't even have to time them. At one point, as you get good at it, which I'm not as good at as I'd like to be, you wouldn't have to put a watch on your kids when they're doing acceleration. Just watch the rhythm over and over and over again. Push, 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 push. Okay. As he does that, now one thing you'll see, or you want to emphasize in the acceleration portion, is that you don't want your athletes to come up too soon. This is 10 steps. So Bjorn shouldn't be popping up after 10 steps. He should still be in this full hip extension position. Okay? We should still be extending fully. I'm not going to have him do it again because we got the basic gist of it. And so once again, this is Vince Anderson's progressive acceleration chart, which has been very, very helpful, which is a very easy tool to use when teaching your athletes an acceleration pattern that is specific to their race. One thing about using an acceleration ladder, because it can be specific, sometimes you're in situations where I have both male and female athletes. I coach both men and women, and they're at varying levels. Not all of them can run the same pattern. What you want to do is you want to have them run a pattern that is in the middle for everybody. So if you have someone that's more of a 10-4 type guy, you got a guy that's more of a 10-7 type guy, eventually in the competitive time of the year, you're going to go a 10-5 ladder. But it's very crucial per Vince that in the fall or when you first start out, you want to find out what your athlete's PR is, and you want to work 4 ladders above that. So an example would be if you, for a female, we use a girl. If you have a girl that runs 10-5, you want to start off 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to start off running a 12-3 ladder because you want to keep the intensity low so you can teach the proper mechanics and then progress them from there. Okay, so it's all rhythm. The stride length and the velocity, the rhythm of the run just progressively gets faster. Here's some task-specific drills to develop one or two things: stride length and stride frequency, which most things revolve around that. One thing that we do a lot are multiple jumps, or even in our workouts, we will time the number of contacts, or we will time the distance that we do when we do things like skip for height, skip for distance, double leg hops forward, double leg hops backwards. So Bjorn's going to demonstrate skip for height. Now, when I have a group of guys, I'll say, okay, we're going to skip for height, and we're going to see how many skips you get in. And what is that telling me? Who's getting there first and how much ground they're covering as they're skipping for height. So Bjorn, just to demonstrate a skip for height. Skip for height, 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 height. Come back. Now we're going to go into a skip for distance. Now, skip for distance I really like. Skip for distance. Keep the leg straight. Good. Now, skip for distance, he picks up that back leg, but we'll teach how to drive that knee. Basically, you're driving your knee forward as you skip for distance. And what I like to see here is we'll set up a distance, and it'll be like 30 meters. We'll do most of this in the fall. We'll do 30 meters. We'll see how many contacts you have in that 30-meter portion. So you see, when I do it, I'll drive the knee and the arm straight out forward in the running motion, but I'm trying to cover as much ground. I'll have them count how many contacts that you have from the beginning to the end. And the guy who got there first or last, we'll be able to tell I will be able to tell as the coach, what I'm working with once again. This is a speed bound. Speed bounds is another kind of sprint drill or training tool that you can use for max velocity mechanics. You see when he does that drill how his knee drives up and right back down to the ground. It's a small plyometric, but the quicker we can do that, we'll time speed bounds. We'll time single leg bounds. Single leg bounds. Keep it low though, not high, but quick. Okay, that's one way. We're talking about ground contacts. So you're watching how he comes on and off the ground. So one way to do it. The other way is to have a recovery phase of that drill. So now we're going. You see how I'm picking up the foot and I'm cycling down the track. Now I'm old. I'm not as fast as they are, but you'll see I spend a lot more time on the ground. The athletes will spend a lot less time on the ground than I do. Okay, block start. This is going to be pretty brief and simple for blocks. We're going to talk about just block settings and block position. Not so much about block clearance, just kind of how to set up your starting blocks. The basics for the ultimate beginner is 2 feet and 1 feet. So Bjerm has his power leg, which is his leg in front. Your power leg is your front leg. That usually is 2 steps from the front line, and your other leg, your back leg, is 3. So when he gets in the blocks, here's the angles you want to look for. There's a short, a medium, and a long crouch start or starting block. So you can have someone start bunched, they can be medium, or they can be long. I like my athletes to be more medium to long. Okay, I've got taller, as the taller they are, you want to be longer. The shorter they are, they can go medium. In some instances, we'll go short. Now, what you're looking for in the starting block, now you're looking at angles. Now, what you want to see is this from his hip here on this side. Now, this is comfortable for Bjerm, but what you typically like to see is you'd want to see a straight line from his hip down to the knee. So you see this angle right here? This should be parallel to the ground, which it is. That's parallel to the ground. And as you come on this side over here, so you see that bottom shin, you want that to be parallel to the ground. And you want his hip from here to here to be perpendicular to the ground. Now, some people have questions, should my toe be on the block or on the ground or whatnot? With these blocks, I like a toe on the ground. Some people have different preferences where they want their foot to be, but to get the maximum stretch reflex, what you want to do is you want to have that front block all the way back, so you want it low. So his front block is pretty much down one more than his back block, because when he comes to set, toe on the ground, and then hit, what you'll see is a rebound. So depending on the height of the block here, if it's a shorter block, he's going to get more of a stretch over the block on his front leg pushing out. But we will keep this front block down low, because that'll allow him to get as much stretch as you can out of that Achilles, out of that calf muscle. And his back block we keep up a little high. So he's powering off the front block, and full extension, that full hip extension is as you push nice and long, quick but long off this front block. There's lots of discussion about block settings and what's the best hurdle clearance. I found that the simpler the better. We can get into very specifics with different athletes as elite athletes have different reasons why they do things. But if you're working with a large group of people, you want to do the right stuff. So you've got to work the right principles, and the athlete will be the athlete and adjust from there, and you adjust with them. You work with the athlete individually. So you want to see that front knee, the shin parallel to the ground, and the back leg, you want to see it perpendicular to the ground. That's the best way to do it. We can talk about angles of 90 degrees and 120 degrees or 135 degrees, but we're just going to look at it and visually see what it looks like, so you can then go back and say, okay, we need to adjust your block so that this front leg is parallel and the back leg is perpendicular. When training your sprinters and putting together a training plan, the things you want to develop in your sprinters from beginning to end, you want to hit every aspect of their event. So understanding that you want to cover acceleration, you want to cover reaction, you want to cover acceleration, you want to cover speed, you want to cover max velocity, you want to cover speed endurance, and you want to cover lactic capacity, how long they can maintain or they can tolerate lactic acid. As you look at the training system chart, we've gone through several drills and all the mechanics of sprinting. When training your sprinter, it's a good idea to look at this chart and understand what is the duration of time that you're trying to train. If you have a 400-meter runner, you can look on the chart and see that from 45 to 90 seconds and up, the energy system that you're using is lactic capacity at that point. And that's about a male 400-meter runner, a male and a female 400-meter runner. So you want to hit every energy system from the top of the chart to that point in training. Okay? So it makes very little sense to spend a lot of time with your quarter milers in the 10 to 12 minute zone of duration of effort. So you don't want to spend, spend a lot of time sending your athlete running repeat miles, for example, because it doesn't apply specifically to their event. So from 45 to 90 seconds, which says the energy system is lactic, it's a capacity, and it's the training effect is to tolerate lactic acid. That's pretty much where you want to spend a lot of time from there up. So from this chart, if you look at it, will take you from the blocks to the finish line. If you're looking at the 200 meters, you'd look at that 15 to 20 second duration of effort line. And so you want to spend time covering all of the training, all of the energy systems related to getting from start to a 23, 24, 25, 26, 20 second 200 meters. So training every aspect of that event using the energy system. So as you're using the energy system necessary. Coaches, as you're putting together your training plan, we have all the drills that we've got and we've demonstrated and displayed in order to get them in the position and to feel the rhythms. But in training as a coach, you want to train the event from the beginning to the finish line. The training effect of each segment is listed on the far right. 5 to 15 seconds is maximum speed, flying start, speed endurance, ability to hold up to 90% effort. So as you read through that, that'll give you an idea of where you want to spend your time and how you want to put together your training plans. Let's talk about speed endurance. When we got into our max velocity mechanics, we want to be able to hold those mechanics through the end of our 200 meter race or at the end of our maintenance phase of the 100 meters. Speed endurance is the athlete's ability to maintain high levels of speed for a long time. So one approach that has been used is to develop maximum speed over a short distance and then stretch it out over longer distances while maintaining a high level of speed. So what that means is that you want to start out developing max speed over, let's say, 30 meters and then stretch that out to 50 meters or 60 meters or 70 meters, however your training goes, and teach the athlete to maintain that level of speed over a longer distance. That's better than going the opposite way, where you're expecting the athlete to increase their speed over distance. So over a certain distance. So you flip-flop it. You develop their max speed, and then you ask them to maintain the max speed. You're not asking them to run any faster. You're asking them to maintain that speed over a longer period of time. You run into problems when you have athletes. You say, okay, we're running 30 meters, and you're running it this fast. You get to 60 meters. I want you to run 60 meters at a faster velocity than you ran 30. It's very difficult, and you could actually hurt your athlete that way. The higher the maximum speed your athlete can attain, the faster they'll be able to run when performing sub-maximal efforts. So what that means is that the faster your athlete is, when they run at sub-max efforts, they'll be able to run faster at their sub-max efforts. So max speed can be held for about 10 to 40 meters at a 90 to 100% effort. Speed endurance, which is trained from 150 to 60 to 150 meters, can be maintained for 90 to 100% effort as well. When coaches talk about, or you hear about something called speed reserve is that reserve that athlete has when they're running at a sub-maximal effort. For example, in the 400 meters. In 400 meters, it's about energy distribution. They're not running their max effort for that first 200. They're running at a sub-max effort. So take, for example, an athlete who can run, a male who can run 21 seconds flat for 200 meters all out. 90% of that, let's say they come through the 200 in the quarter at 22.5 or 22 seconds, that's a sub-max effort for the first 200. But they have that extra speed reserve that they could still use. So an athlete who can run 21 seconds all out in a 200 can come through the 200 pretty comfortably in a 400 meters at 22.5. And that wouldn't be that much of an effort for them, and be able to come back. That's that speed reserve, or an aspect of the speed reserve that you can develop, where the higher the max speed that you develop, the faster they will be able to run in sub-max performances. You develop that athlete to be able to run 20.5 for the first 200. They can come through in 21.5, 22 flat for the first 200, and that's a sub-max effort. Another aspect of speed endurance is special endurance, and that's long speed endurance, and that's trained in the 150 to 300 meter zone, and that's usually trained at that 80 to 90 to 100% effort. Special endurance is very, very much event specific. So you're developing endurance specifically for an aspect or training zone of the event. You want to be able to get your athlete to come through the 300 at a certain a time for their race, for their competition. You train at a lower intensity, from 80% intensity to 100% intensity, repetitively at that distance with full recovery. Usually when you're looking at 100% efforts or 90% efforts and above, the more rest you need, recovery. That's something I'll bring up right now, actually, is recovery. Think about it this way. The higher the intensity, the more recovery. The lower the intensity, the less recovery is needed. You're training two different energy systems, okay? When you're running all out, and to make it very basic, when you run all out, that's anaerobic capacity or anaerobic power. You need full recovery. Sometimes that's 8 minutes, sometimes that's 6 minutes, sometimes it's 10 minutes, but you need to let the athlete recover so that physiologically they can come back and do it again. When you're running at lower intensities, 69 to 75%, you can repeat 200s with 2 minutes rest. You can repeat 200s with 1 minute rest. You can repeat 200s with 30 seconds rest at slower intensities. So the lower the intensity, the less recovery. The higher the intensity, the more recovery they need. Examples of speed endurance workouts. Long speed endurance workouts are considered intensive tempo. There's extensive tempo and intensive tempo. Extensive tempo is the work that's done in that 70 to 75 or 69 to 75% range. Intensive tempo is done usually at 85% and above in intensity. Okay? So your lactic power and your lactic capacity work is done in intensive tempo. Examples of those types of workouts are 5 to 6 250s with 5 minutes rest. Or you go 3 to 4 500s with 5 minutes rest at 85% intensity. Or you see the sets of 300 200s or 300 100s, more the simulation type workouts for your quarter milers, with 60 seconds between the 3 and the 2 or 3 and the 1, and 10 minutes, 6 to 10 minutes between the sets. And once again, the intensity is about 80 to 90%. The runs are greater than 80 meters, and the recovery is 30 seconds to 6 minutes. The volume of intensive tempo, you want to keep it between 800 to 2400 meters. The volume chart will be posted up in a little bit, so you'll be able to see what volumes for what events you should run. You want to be able to do, here's a key in one principle. You want to be able to do enough tempo intervals or lactic capacity intervals before you do special endurance intervals. That's 80 to 90% with short rest, or 95% efforts with full rest. So you want to get enough of the tempo intervals, which is the capacity work, your ability to maintain, your ability to do more work and to tolerate lactic acid before you do the power work. The power work is all out rest. So when you're talking about short speed endurance workouts, this is an old workout, 4x4 by 60 meters with 2 minutes rest, 2 to 3 minutes rest between each one, and 4 to 6 minutes between each set. That's a tough workout. Or you have 6 times 120 with 3 minutes rest, and you're looking at about 85% effort and above. And that's considered alactic power and capacity because the emphasis is on speed. If you're looking at the same workout, we can take the same workout, the 4x4 by 60 meters, and take 1 minute rest, 1 to 1 minute 30 rest, and 5 minutes between each set. You're looking at a capacity workout because you're decreasing the rest, which emphasizes speed in a higher state of fatigue. So now you're training the athlete to tolerate lactic acid, but to run fast or maintain a certain velocity under a state of fatigue. The key to all this is that you want to get your athletes to do these types of workouts within sound technique and sprint mechanics. So as you're running the 4x4 by 60 meters, there's the acceleration component of it, there's the max velocity component of it, it's front side mechanics. You're emphasizing all the things that we've discussed and we've seen here on the track within the confines of the workout. So every workout you want to stay within good sound mechanics. So when mechanics fail, the quality of speed endurance running will not be enhanced. When your mechanics fail, when you see your athletes' mechanics begin to fail, the quality of speed endurance running will not be enhanced. It does not help them to try to run fast without sound mechanics. It will not help. Here are the ranges for training ranges. Let's say you have a 100-meter runner. When you're doing speed work, you want to stay within the 500-meter range. If you're doing, some athletes can go as high as 800 meters, for example, your 400-meter runners. So 100 meters, you want to stay within 500 meters. 200 to 100 hurdles, you want to go 800 meters. 400-meter runners, you want to go about 900 meters max. And that's when you're training speed. Now, when you say 500 meters, we're talking about speed, we're talking about 60 meters and below. So if you're doing crouch starts, if you're doing starts and you're doing 500 meters, you can do, any combination you want. You can do 5 times 30 meters and then come back and do 5 times 60 meters. That's 300, and that's 450 meters of volume. You can break it up any way you want. As the coach, you can kind of chop it up however you want. Or you can do 120, all out 120s, 150s, whichever you prefer. But if you're going to do speed, when you're talking about your 100-meter guys, you want to stay within the 500-meter max volume in that session. And for the 200, 800 meters, and for the 400, 900 meters in that session, however you chop it up. When you're talking about speed endurance, you're looking at 800-meter max for your 1, 2, and 100-meter hurdlers, and for your 400 hurdlers, you're looking at 1,800 to maybe 20. It's not listed there, but 2,400 meters of work. When you're talking about your 400-meter hurdlers, speed and speed endurance should be developed together. When you're developing speed, you're also developing speed endurance. I'm of the belief that we train all the aspects of sprinting all the time. So we're working on speed, we're working on acceleration, we're working on speed development, working on max velocity, working on speed endurance. Maybe not 100%, but at different dosages or different quantities throughout the year. Speed development, speed increases over distances. We talked about that. Speed should precede endurance within a workout. So within a workout, you want to do the shorter, faster stuff before you do the longer stuff. Physiologically, there's reasons for that, and I'll just say that fatigue plays a role, and keep it very simple. This is another chart that I gleaned from another coach, talking about where do you get the most bang for your buck in training? Where do you see the most improvements, or where do you get the most improvement at your athletes doing certain types of training? If you look at this chart, you'll see that for your 400-meter runners, you get the most bang for your buck doing long sprints. The next thing on the list would be uphill intervals and then pace intervals. So if you're going to train your quarter milers, you see that if you run endurance intervals, repeat 800s, you get less of a improvement in performance times from doing that kind of work than you do if you did longer sprints. And that's more in that intensive tempo, special endurance type of training. If you look at your 100-meter runner, you get a lot out of doing uphill intervals. And that'll be short hills more than likely, because in the 100 meters, acceleration is a big part of the 100 meters. And so doing uphill intervals, 30, 60, maybe even up to, maybe not so much up to 90 meters, but 30, 60 meter hills, you see more improvement in performance times than if you were running long and steady. A 100-meter runner doesn't necessarily need to spend a lot of time doing long and steady. Mind you, there's nothing precluded from this. You can touch all these different types of training, but you want to spend the bulk of your time doing the things that you're going to get the most improvement in performance from. As you can see on the next slide, here's your 100-meter race model. And here's your 200-meter race model. Task-specific skills for developing max speed and sprint conditioning. Straight leg bounds, speed bounds, shorter than, longer than drill, lunges, long hills, stair workouts, strength circuits, hills, sleds, bullet belt work, hurdle hops, straight leg hurdle hops, single leg hurdle hops, sand routines, multiple throws, multiple jumps, balance, stability and core, ins and outs. All those task-specific drills are things that you would want to have in your training plan that would help you to piece together, or to put together as a coach, what you need in order to develop a really good sprinter from a training aspect. I believe that when training hurdlers, sprinters, track and field athletes in general, if you can make the athlete a better athlete, they'll be a better track athlete. So I train on the principle of biomotor abilities. You want to train your biomotor abilities. You want to train speed. You want to train strength, flexibility, endurance, mobility, strength. Those things are things that you want to have as a part of your training program. But the better the athlete, the better the athlete, the better sprinter they become, the better jumper they become. So you want to always keep that athletic component in your training. Specificity is great, and we train very specific, but also in doing that, you don't want to forget that you've got to have an athlete that can still throw a ball. You would be surprised how many kids nowadays can't throw a ball. So medicine ball throws, over back shot, under forward shot, these types of things, developing power, developing strength, coordination, those types of things should be included in your training program, because you want to develop a better athlete. Not just a better hurdler, you want your athletes to be better athletes. Okay, and my name is Shelia Burrell. I'm the assistant sprints, hurdles, and jumps coach at Georgetown University. And there you have your task-specific hurdle drills, and there you have your task-specific sprint drills.